I'm Ros Atkins, welcome to Outside Source. We'll begin in Washington because Kevin McCarthy has fallen short of the votes he needed to become the next Speaker of the US House of Representatives. Here are live pictures coming in from Washington.
I'm Will Grant on Capitol Hill, where 19 Republicans voted against Mr. McCarthy, the first time in a century that this vote has gone through to the second round.
We'll have full analysis from Washington, from Will and from others. Also in this hour, we'll turn to Israel. A far-right minister there has visited a contested site in Jerusalem, sparking outrage from Palestinians and across the Arab world.
This is a violation of all international norms, values, agreements, laws, and Israel's pledges to the American president.
Here in the UK, 4 in 5 trains have been cancelled today at the start of days of industrial action by rail workers. Right, straight to Washington, because in the last few minutes we've learnt that Kevin McCarthy has failed in his bid to become Speaker of the House of Representatives. These are live pictures from Capitol Hill. You can see Mr. McCarthy talking to colleagues, smiling a little as well, but this would not have been what he wanted. Let's bring in my colleague Will Grant straight away. Will, let's start from the beginning here. Help us understand the process and understand why Mr. McCarthy couldn't get there.
Thank you.
So, just a reminder, one of the top jobs in the US, the House Speaker in the House of Representatives, not resolved. Kevin McCarthy did not get the requisite votes. We'll continue to bring coverage of that. But let's switch from Washington to Israel, because the new Minister of National Security there has visited a contested holy site in Jerusalem. Itamar Ben-Gvir, who you can see in these pictures, has for a long time called for a harder line towards the Palestinians. Today we saw him walking around this holy site, surrounded by Israeli police. One Muslim resident of Jerusalem described what he saw. Now, here in the UK, 4 out of 5 trains have been cancelled in the first rail strike of 2023. The strike's due to last 48 hours. Today's action in England, Wales and Scotland is by members of the RMT union. It's over pay, jobs and working conditions. But commuters returning to work after the Christmas break are being urged not just to avoid travelling by rail today, but in fact all week, because of a variety of strikes, some of which run to Saturday. The BBC's Theo Leggett has this report from Euston Station in London. And if you want more details on which unions are going on strike and when they're going on strike and what impact that will have on services through the week, you can find that at bbc.com/news. You'll also, of course, find analysis of the situation that both the unions and the government find themselves in and their respective strategies. Also, just a quick reminder of the story we got within the last half an hour, which is that Kevin McCarthy, one of the most senior Republicans, has failed in his initial bid to become Speaker of the House of Representatives. That doesn't mean he won't become it in time, but for now, he doesn't have the votes. I'm Ros Atkins, welcome back to Outside Source. In Washington, Kevin McCarthy has failed in his initial bid to become the next Speaker of the House of Representatives. As the battle for Bakhmut rages in eastern Ukraine, a Russian military boss has admitted great difficulty in capturing the city. In New York, Sam Bankman-Fried has appeared in court. He's the former boss of the failed cryptocurrency exchange FTX, and he's pleaded not guilty to all the charges he faces. And we'll turn to Brazil, which has been saying goodbye to Pelé. His coffin has made a final journey through the packed streets of his hometown. Well, let's begin this half hour in Ukraine and specifically focusing on the battle for Bakhmut. It's seen some of the most intense fighting of this war, and Ukraine has been fiercely defending the city for months. Now, though, Ukraine is facing a Russian military group, Wagner, which is involved in the Russian efforts to take the city, and the head of the Wagner group has described great difficulty Well, Brazil and football fans around the world have been mourning the death of Pelé once more, as today he was laid to rest in a ceremony in his home city of Santos. The footballing legend's coffin received a hero's reception from fans who lined the streets of the city. It was carried by a fire truck before being taken to a private family ceremony and then to his final resting place. Here's the moment the people of Brazil said goodbye to Pelé. Katie, thank you very much indeed. There's Katie Watson live with us from Santos. Now, stay with me here on Outside Source. In a few minutes, we're going to go to New York and talk about Sam Bankman-Fried. He's the former boss of the bankrupted cryptocurrency exchange FTX. He's pleaded not guilty to all the charges he's facing in the US. We'll be in New York with Michelle Fleury to find out more. I'm Ros Atkins with Outside Source. We're here as ever in the BBC newsroom. Our lead story comes from Washington. Kevin McCarthy has fallen short of the votes he needed to become the next Speaker of the House of Representatives, though he'll seek them once more in a further vote. We don't have a timing on when that will happen. Now, let's move from Washington to New York. Sam Bankman-Fried, the former boss of the bankrupt cryptocurrency exchange FTX, has pleaded not guilty when faced with a range of criminal charges that he cheated investors and looted billions of dollars from the now bankrupt exchange. Here was Sam Bankman-Fried arriving through a scrum of media. That was a little while ago. Let's just quickly remind ourselves of who he is. He's the founder of FTX. He was once known as the king of crypto. He was based in the Bahamas. And as late as October, he had a net worth estimated at more than $15 billion. Well, best of luck to Thor wherever he's going next. If you want more on him and indeed all of the other stories that we cover on Outside Source, remember you can get those through bbc.com/news. We'll see you tomorrow at the usual time. Bye-bye. I'm Ros Atkins, this is Outside Source. In Washington, Kevin McCarthy has fallen short of the votes he needs to become the next Speaker of the House of Representatives.
I'm Will Grant in Washington, D.C., where it's clear that Mr. McCarthy faces a huge challenge in trying to obtain the 218 votes he needs for the Speaker's chair.
We'll have full analysis from Washington. Also in this half hour, we'll turn to Israel. One far-right minister has visited a contested site in Jerusalem, sparking outrage from Palestinians and across the Arab world.
This is a violation of all international norms, values, agreements, laws, and Israel's pledges to the American president.
And here in the UK, 4 in 5 trains have been cancelled today at the start of days of industrial action by rail workers. Well, let's start in Washington because the Republican Congressman Kevin McCarthy has so far failed to win enough votes to become Speaker of the House of Representatives. He certainly didn't in the first round. This is the moment when the result was announced. Now, let's turn to Israel. New Minister of National Security has visited a contested holy site in Jerusalem. Itamar Ben-Gvir, who you can see here, has for a long while called for a harder line towards the Palestinians. Today we saw him walking around this holy site surrounded by Israeli police. One Muslim resident of Jerusalem described what he saw. Thanks to Joel for for that update. Now stay with me here on Outside Source. In a few minutes we'll switch to New York because Sam Bankman-Fried's appeared in court there. He's the former boss of the failed cryptocurrency exchange FTX. He's pleaded not guilty to all of the criminal charges he faces. I'm Ros Atkins with Outside Source. We're here in the BBC newsroom. Our lead story comes from Washington. Kevin McCarthy fell short in the first round of voting to become the next Speaker of the House of Representatives. He looks certain to fall short in the second too. A far-right Israeli minister has visited a contested site in Jerusalem, sparking outrage from Palestinians and across the Arab world. Now, let's talk about Sam Bankman-Fried. He's the former boss of the bankrupt cryptocurrency exchange FTX. He's pleaded not guilty on all the criminal charges that he faces in the US. He's accused of cheating investors and looting billions of dollars from the FTX exchange. Now here in the UK, 4 out of 5 trains have been cancelled in the first rail strike of 2023, which is due to last 48 hours. Today's action in England, Scotland and Wales by members of the RMT union over pay, jobs and working conditions is not the first. They were also on strike for some time before Christmas. But commuters returning to work after the Christmas break are being urged to avoid travelling not just during this 48-hour strike, but actually avoid travelling by rail all of this week because of various strikes that are running in some cases through to Saturday. And Theo ends this edition of Outside Source. Thanks for watching.
Hello there. We've had records broken already, and it's only the third day in